My name is Lena. The first time Victor Hale had offered me money, it didn't sound like kindness. It sounded like control. At that time, I was working as a freelance photographer while trying to survive in a city that never slowed down. Rent was late, my camera was falling apart, and I was one missed payment away from losing my apartment. That night, I was covering a luxury business event at a hotel downtown. That's where Victor noticed me. Not in a romantic way, more like someone examining something carefully. Later, while I was packing my equipment, he walked over calmly. "You're talented," he said. Then his eyes moved to my old camera bag. "You're also struggling." My chest tightened immediately. Before I could answer, he handed me his card. "If you ever need help," he said softly, "call me before things get worse." Then he smiled slightly. Not warm, certain. And somehow that smile made me feel like he already knew I would eventually say yes. I told myself I would never call Victor. But 3 days later, my landlord knocked on my door again. "Last warning," he said coldly. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at Victor's card for almost an hour. Then I called him. He answered immediately, like he was waiting. The next evening, we met at a quiet restaurant. Victor listened while I talked about work, about money, about how tired I felt all the time. And somehow he noticed everything. When my hands shook, when I forced a smile, when I stopped talking halfway through a sentence. At the end of dinner, the waiter brought the bill. I reached for my wallet quickly. Victor stopped me gently. "I'll take care of it," he said. Then he looked at me carefully. "You shouldn't have to struggle this hard alone." That sentence stayed in my head all night, because no one had said something like that to me in a very long time. After that dinner, Victor started calling me more often. At first, it felt harmless. He asked about my work, my apartment, my day, and slowly I started looking forward to his messages. One afternoon, my camera suddenly stopped working during a photo shoot. I almost panicked. Without a camera, I couldn't work. And without work, I couldn't pay rent. I called Victor without even thinking. 2 hours later, he arrived at the studio carrying a new camera bag. My chest tightened immediately. "Victor, this is too much." He smiled calmly. "It's just a gift. But gifts like that don't feel free." I knew that. Still, I accepted it. That night, we ate dinner together again. Everything felt easy around him. Too easy. Then, while I was checking my phone, Victor looked at the screen suddenly. "Who's Daniel?" he asked. "My friend," I answered. Victor stayed quiet for a second too long. Then he smiled slightly. "You should be careful about the people you keep around you." Something about his voice changed when he said that. Soft, but cold underneath. And for the first time I realized Victor didn't just want my attention anymore. He wanted space in my life that belonged only to him. A few days later, Victor invited me to his penthouse for dinner. I almost refused, but somehow I still went. The city lights filled the windows behind him. Soft music played quietly. Everything about that place felt expensive, careful, controlled. Victor poured me a drink slowly, then looked at me for a few seconds too long. "You look exhausted," he said softly. I laughed a little. Life's expensive. His expression changed slightly. "It doesn't have to be." The room suddenly felt quieter after that. We talked for hours, or maybe it just felt that way, because around Victor's time always moved strangely. Later that night, I walked onto the balcony for air. Victor followed a few seconds later. We stood close together, too close. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore," he said quietly. Then his hand touched my waist. Slowly, carefully, my breathing changed immediately. Part of me knew this moment mattered, that once something crossed between us, nothing would feel simple again. But when Victor leaned in and kissed me, I didn't stop him. And the way his hand tightened gently against my waist afterward made me realize he already knew I wouldn't. After the kiss, things changed quickly. Victor started feeling less like a stranger and more like someone I depended on. That scared me, but not enough to walk away. A week later, I stayed at his penthouse longer than usual. We ate dinner late, talked on the couch. At one point, I started laughing about something stupid from work. Victor just watched me quietly, like seeing me happy meant something to him. And honestly, that look broke my guard more than compliments ever could. Later that night, the rain started again. Heavy, the city lights blurred against the windows. Victor touched my face gently, then kissed me slowly. Different this time, more intimate, more certain. And when he led me toward the bedroom, I followed him. Not because he forced me, because part of me wanted to believe this was real, that maybe someone finally cared enough to protect me. The next morning, I woke up alone. The other side of the bed was cold. For a second, I smiled anyway. Then I noticed the envelope on the nightstand. My chest tightened immediately. Inside was cash. More money than I had ever held before, and one short note. "For your rent." I stared at it silently, because in one painful second, everything I thought that night meant suddenly felt like a transaction. I didn't answer Victor's calls for 2 days. I kept thinking about the envelope, the money, the note. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it sitting on the nightstand again, like proof of something I didn't want to admit. Then Victor showed up at my apartment, calm as always. He looked at me for a long moment. "You disappeared," he said quietly. I crossed my arms. "You left money beside my bed." Victor didn't react immediately. That somehow hurt more. "It was for your rent," he said. "That's not the point." Silence filled the room. Then Victor stepped closer slowly. "I take care of people I care about," he said calmly. "Care about." I almost believed him again. Almost. Then his phone rang. Victor answered without checking the screen. "Yeah," he said casually. A short pause. Then he laughed softly. "No, she's fine now." My stomach tightened instantly. She was struggling before I stepped in. Another pause. Then the sentence that broke something inside me. She needed someone to handle things. Handle things. Like I was a problem he solved, not a person. Victor finally looked back at me and realized I heard everything. The room went quiet, and for the first time since meeting him, I stopped feeling wanted and started feeling owned. 2 days later, I went back to Victor's penthouse one last time. Not because I missed him, because I needed to end it looking him in the eyes. Victor opened the door calmly, like he already knew why I was there. I placed the camera he bought me on the table, then the envelope of money beside it. His eyes moved down briefly. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. "That's the problem," I answered. "You always talk like everything has a price." Silence filled the room. Victor stepped closer slowly. "I helped you when nobody else did." That sentence hurt because part of it was true. But help shouldn't make someone feel owned. "I cared about you," he added softly. Maybe he believed that. Maybe in his own way, he really did. But love that comes with control eventually stops feeling like love. I shook my head slowly, then walked toward the door. Victor didn't stop me this time. And just before I left, I realized something important. The most dangerous people aren't always cruel. Sometimes they just make you feel so safe that you stop noticing the chains forming around you. And by the time you finally see them, you've already given away pieces of yourself trying to be loved.